Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Code with Italians, where I hope you can hear me. Maybe, yes, you probably can. You have to know that today's random Windows bug is that my microphone does not exist in the Windows interface. It's just like, oh yeah, you're using no input device, and I'm like, Anyway, if you hear
Well,
weird stuff, it's Windows'
yeah,
fault.
whereas
It's not my fault.
you're assuming that people can hear you, Sebastiano. So let's get the feedback from the.
Oh, I mean, I can see the waveform, so at least it's recording something. I don't know what, but I'm sure people will let us know if they can only hear gibberish when I speak. Well, that's what always happens anyway.
I'm not sure that indicates anything in particular.
No, exactly. That's actually the baseline I've established over time. Oh, thank you, Mark, for the sub. So today we have someone you haven't seen in a while here. That is the gentleman to my right. Hey, Chet.
Oh, hey, everybody. Thanks for having me on the show for the first time.
Yes.
This week, for the first time this week.
And then we have Mark as well. Hi, Mark. Welcome. New guest. Today we're going to be talking about this, which is it exists.
Why don't I have a paper version of that?
Next time you go to Kotlin Conf and you get a physical one.
First of all, that's unfair. Second, you were here Saturday.
Yes.
I was like, you didn't bring any.
I literally have one.
Okay, so now Mark, why he has one? How this is BS.
Okay. So the other way to see this is, Chet, how many physical copies do you have?
Of that? 0.
Yeah. See, even you can't complain.
But there are some on the way, because I actually gave some to Tor when he was at Kotlin Conf, and it's on its way to Chet, but it will take some time.
What is the verb muling? I believe Tor is muling some physicals to me.
We do not want to know how.
It's incredibly indirect. Like Tor traveled from Mountain View to Kotlin Conf, probably to Norway from there, because he tends to go home, and then back to Mountain View. And I'm in Chicago, and I will be traveling through Europe, actually, including, I'll probably see Mark in Berlin, and then I'll finally get to Mountain View in July. So like 2 months after the conference, which is like 2 months minus a day after the information is obsolete, I will get a physical copy.
Wow. At least you know the information, because you already wrote one piece of that information, right? Because you were one of the authors of the magazine, so you know what content will be outdated before others know.
Yeah, I mean, if my content is any indication, then I'm not sure there's any information in that magazine whatsoever. But I look forward to finding out.
Yeah. There's content in our magazine with information, and then there's Chet article.
There's also a bunch of these around. I don't know if you can.
What is it?
It's a sheep.
Yeah.
It works better if you hold it up in front of the camera.
Oh, he has multiple cameras. So what you see,
sorry, Chet, you're not on the fancy camera. You're on the other one.
Oh. Yeah.
You're on the Windows does not allow you to share a webcam between two processes, so I had to buy a second webcam. That's the webcam you're on.
Stereo Sebastiani.
Yeah, you could technically.
But think about the positive of Windows recall. At some point, they're gonna just grab everything from your screen and share it. So it will be easier, right?
No.
I mean, this is the year of Linux on desktop, my friend. I mean, only Microsoft could make that happen. At some point, we're like, we're gonna record everything. I think I'm gonna dual boot this machine. I have the feeling that I'm gonna dual boot this machine. Anyway, so ranting aside,
do you want to do your event thing, and then we can let's start talking about the magazine.
Let's do the event thing. So we were discussing subscriptions, and we have Mark Ellison also subscribing for the 27th time. Thank you, Mark. We use the money from the subscribers to buy things like this and ship things like this, stickers and keychain and everything that we then give away at conferences. Sebastiano gave away like a gazillion stickers and magnets at Kotlin Conf. Was it Kotlin Conf, Sebastiano?
Yes, and Google I/O.
Okay. And Google I/O. Also Google I/O, so, through Europe and the US. We have
I was internationally muling as well.
Jesus Christ. Okay, perfect. So thank you for your support. If you have an Amazon Prime subscription, remember that you can connect your Twitch account and your Amazon account, because Uncle Bezos, back in the day, he bought everything. So if you want to support us for free, just link your Twitch account to your Amazon account, and you will see on Twitch there is a new toggle that says subscribe with Prime for free. And you can support the stream just with a toggle.
More stickers.
Thank you. Or more stickers, or if you want to buy something like like our T-shirts, we have mugs, we have a lot of that. Is that the heart thing going on Twitch? Yes, I think. Or this is only
the Mac OS thing.
Okay. That was cool. So thank you for supporting us. Now back to business. Sebastiano.
Yes.
This feels like, so you have a paper magazine that feels old school. Chet is getting his information in about 2 months. That feels very 18th century. So what are we talking? What are we talking about today?
Well,
with this gentleman, because I got the gist of the the thing from the magazine. But
I think maybe the first step would be for you folks to explain why this exists. That sounds like a good starting point.
Over to Mark.
Yeah, maybe I can give a small recap on how this actually happened. So, yeah, this idea about making a small humorous thing for Kotlin developers. Actually, I had this like 2 or 3 years ago, and I thought, well, there are these colorful magazines in the shop at the kiosk that you could buy that are completely gossip oriented. So who goes out with who, and look at these cute baby pictures, and who broke up with who, and everything. And I thought, like, wouldn't it be cool to have something like that for Kotlin developers? To just have some fun, like the fun keyword. And then I think at last year's Kotlin Conf, I actually told some JetBrains people, and some of the ideas for this, just a cover. So the idea was just to make a single cover and no actual content. And then I told this to some JetBrains people, one of them being Roman Elizarov, and told them about the idea. And we got some laughter about this, especially when I talked to him, like, we can put like Hardy's best JavaScript jokes, episode 1 of 360.
You need 10 pages just for complaints. Hardy complaining about that X.
Yeah, and then when we got the laughter like last year, then I thought, like, wow, we really need to make this happen. And then this year we actually collected a team, and then we made a small thing happen for 1st of April. That was just a small cover. So if you go to kotlintoday.com, you can actually see it. Maybe one of you could share, or I should share.
I will.
So they
Give
can
me
actually,
a second.
Yeah. So basically, we created this, and this was basically the first idea, just a cover and just for fun. But then I thought, hey, Kotlin Conf is coming up in May. How about we actually make a real magazine with some real content? Yes, Chet, that includes your article.
Actually, the way you explained it makes a little more sense now why you reached out to me. Because like I originally thought, wait, you're making a technical magazine and you're asking someone who just quit their job and no longer works in tech. Do you understand what's going on here? Like, do you know what the result is going to be? But if your entire premise was to make a humor article, it makes slightly more sense why I was bothered to be included.
Well, it was actually, the idea was first just for fun, like the 1st of April thing, because April's Fools, right, is just for fun. But then it turned out into a real idea. But the nice thing is that we had some people who misunderstood the idea and then thought, okay, it's going to be just a magazine with just fun content. And then we had people contributing some actual content, like more technical stuff. And then we had some people with more fun ideas. And then I thought, well, this is great. Now we have a great mix of fun and more technical content. Yeah, so this is the Kotlin Today page, but if you want to see the 1st of April thing, then if you scroll down a little, there should be a link to April Fools. And that was actually what we launched for 1st of April.
And you'll notice the key difference is there's a different magazine title.
Yeah, yes.
That
yes.
explains the domain, I guess.
Was actually to have it named Kotlin Today Magazine. Turns out there's a Kotlin trademark, but we tried reaching out to the Kotlin Foundation upfront, but we didn't get a reply. And then for 1st of April, I thought, well, maybe it's okay to just launch it with that name for 1st of April. But yeah, there's some good stuff in here. And what was fun here actually was we actually wanted to show one of the language designers of Kotlin, like Andrei Breslov, who's not working on the Kotlin language anymore. But we wanted to show him actually on a beach, sitting in a hammock with a cocktail in his hand. And then we just wanted some AI to generate such an image, and turns out the AIs did a great job, but none of the pictures actually looked like Andrei Breslov. So I actually wrote him on Slack, and then I was surprised that he actually answered, and he said, "Oh, I have no pictures of hammocks, but maybe you can use one of these pictures instead." And that's how we got Andrei Breslov on the 1st of April cover.
So now I'm kind of disappointed that there are this is not an actual magazine. Like I want to know what is Andre doing in his retirement. I mean, I know, but I want to know more.
And that's we are going into the gossip, the gossip magazine that Mark was mentioning at the beginning. Now is
full circle, full circle. So, in the actual physical magazine, did you actually had how did you pick the people that got to write an article there? Was that something that you talked about in person with someone at an event, or did you just, because I see a bunch of, very well-known faces here. So I wonder how you collected everyone together for this.
Yeah, so some people I knew from the Android community and from the Kotlin community, and I approached them directly. And then I also relied on the recommendation of some others to ping some more people. And we actually had I think we have up to 50 people in our Slack channel, so we're quite a big team. Quite a big team, yes. But only I think 12 or 13, maybe 13 people actively contributed then to the real magazine.
So how many? I don't know where I got dragged into this relative to the timeline of all the rest of this. I know when I joined, there were people in the chat like Jesse Wilson. I'm like, clearly this is going to be a technical production with a lot of merit. And then my piece. What was I thinking? And I completely lost my train of thought. Nope, it's gone.
You were asking when in the timeline you got looped in, I think.
Yeah. How much content did you have by the time I sent you the article? So the timeline for me was I was asked, probably shortly after I actually quit, which is timing. And then it kind of sat in my queue because it turns out grad school is a lot of work. Who knew? I'm more than consumed by all the writing and reading that I need to do for school. And so it kept sitting there oh, this would be a really fun thing to do. I have no idea. And then I went back to my homework. And then eventually I realized the due date that Mark had given me was coming up. And so I dashed off something quick and sent it in. Sorry to be tardy about this. I hope you're still taking content. And how much content did you have then when you received mine?
So we definitely already had some content there. So I'm really happy about Jesse Wilson, by the way, because I pinged him via email, and like I don't know, a couple of days later, maybe 2 or 3 days later, he already had the article ready. I was like, whoa,
Wow.
that was crazy. That was crazily fast. And I also had one of the ideas was to put like a 3D Kotlin logo. So I had this idea, and I just drafted up that idea. So maybe we can share again like the videos. Just so here's a thing that you can cut out and that you can glue together. And I basically drafted up that thing in like 1 or 2 hours, and then I prototyped it, and later on I improved it. And so you can basically get your own 3D Kotlin logo. And so that was one of the 2 content things that we had, and probably some ideas already in draft. So I think Mario Bodemann was also really quick. So he suggested this Coonlander thing, which is basically a game that you have to type in. So you have to type in the code, like in one of these really, really old magazines.
Wow, that's like very 1970s. That's late 70s magazine tropes.
That is so awesome. Cool, and it turned out quite amazing too. So if you look into the Kotlin magazine in the middle, yes, here is the Coonlander. So it's so you really have to do the PDF in a two page. So the nice thing is this completely happened by accident. So I thought that well, I'm just gonna do it on a double page. And by chance, it happened to land exactly in the middle of the magazine. So if you fold the magazine open, there comes Mario's Coonlander, which I think is really, really nice because it turned out beautifully. Like his idea with the game and everything. That was great. So there was only some content available when I actually pinged Chet to contribute. I actually pinged Chet quite in the beginning because I pinged some people from the community, and I also invited them to the Slack channel. And turned out that Chet got the email, and he was really responsive. I was so happy, Chet, when you replied that you will take this idea and see something, create an article for it.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it was really appealing. Like, despite the abundance of homework, I miss this element. Like, I miss a lot of what I did for the last 14 years. No, longer than that in tech. The coding included, but I particularly miss like that aspect of community stuff, like doing some articles and videos and conferences and meeting people, and like that all went away along with the job. And when something comes up, like conversation with the Italians again, or doing ADB occasionally, or whatever it is, or going to DroidCon in Berlin, I'm like, yes, I would like to still do that. It doesn't necessarily make sense to include me, but I do like the opportunity to be included because that was a big part of what I did sort of as hobby work beyond the code that I was writing. So yeah, I was happy to be included, and then I needed to figure out how to actually carve out time to do the thing. But fortunately, I put together something pretty quickly and sent it in.
Yeah, and it's so Chet, I really have an apology to make to you live here on this on this channel, and also maybe we can actually tell the story how the magazine nearly not came to be actually. So there was a timeline, and I picked Chet quite early in the timeline when we were still creating this April's Fool thing, and then we actually contacted the Kotlin Foundation and the Kotlin Conf team. And first we did not get a response by the Kotlin Foundation. So we went ahead with the 1st of April and we got the content. So we had this roller coaster of emotions. So we had the high of getting content. Then we had the high of actually launching the 1st of April. And then we actually turned, so the motivation took a toll because, took a bump because we weren't allowed to use the Kotlin name in our magazine name, which is unsurprising actually, but it was still like a small bummer to us. And actually our plan was, when we created the magazine, we thought about, so Ivan also, like we wanted to give one copy to every single person at Kotlin Conf. And so we contacted the Kotlin Conf team, and turns out they actually wanted to have a green conference. And the problem with printing a magazine for all the people and having a green conference is those are mutually exclusive. You can have one or the other.
Yeah, I mean, Greta is not happy about the paper thing. So you can print stuff and say, yeah, surprise, we are also green. But I appreciate the idea. So thank you, Mark.
Mm-hmm. So we actually wanted to launch it for 2000 KotlinConf attendees and then print it for all of them. We even had sponsors ready, but there comes another problem. Like if you put some sponsors into the magazine, then the sponsors of the conference, they might object because they say, "Oh, that is cool. Why weren't we part of this?" And I was a little bit naive in the beginning because I really didn't put myself into the position of the KotlinConf organization team, like the Orga team, because this was kind of obvious in hindsight. And there goes our motivation. So motivation high, motivation low. And I actually told people in our Slack channel, this was fun. Like the motivation is not the best. Like maybe we can still do something. The thing was, Chet did not get into the Slack channel yet.
Yes. So background to that is I don't do Slack. Like every time I log in, it's such a complete pain in the ass. Especially like I do not understand their authentication login system where it's like I belong to, let's say, 4 or 5 different channels and they all have a different way of logging in. Like, can't they get this crap together? How long has it existed? That it's so arduous for me to remember how to log into every particular thing. And everybody has some like, this is me being, grumpy person, but it just seems so insane that such a huge product used by so many people has such a barrier to re-entry. And so every time I log out of Slack, it's at least like another year or 2 before I bother logging in because it's just not worth it. So people will be like, "Oh, for this conference, we have a Slack." I'm like, "That's nice for you. I won't be there." And so Mark said, "Hey, we have a Slack channel." And I thought, great, have fun with that. So I never saw any of these conversations. I was just on my own at home with this deadline looming. Oh, Mark asked for this content, and I said yes. That's all I knew.
I think the majority of people that use Slack have one Slack, their work Slack, and that's it. And that's why it might work for them. But
yeah. And it was never my work Slack. Like I didn't have an impending reason that I needed to do it, right? Because we obviously had different tools at Google and other places that I worked prior to that. And so like I only had these like side things come up, and that just wasn't a compelling reason for me to live there. Like there's ASG that again I log in once a year, maybe. Usually if like I know that someone had something for me there. Otherwise, like it's gonna take so long for me to figure out what that link was again.
The TLDR is ping you on Twitter is the easiest way.
It is. Yep. Unfortunately. Yep.
Yeah, and email sometimes. Email works.
Yeah.
So
I mean, if you happen to know that, or you can ping me on LinkedIn. The LinkedIn is weird though because people will ping me there, and that's an automatic request to connect. It's like, well, I haven't worked with you. This is a work network, right? So, yeah, LinkedIn is good for contacting me. It's not good for connecting with me, but it depends on what you're after.
But Chet, I looked at your GitHub repo. And you are a perfect fit for our JavaScript junior developer position.
Yeah, obviously, recruiters have a lot of luck contacting me through LinkedIn. That's how I found 0 of my jobs. Yep.
Hey, I found 1 of my jobs on LinkedIn, so there's that.
So you joined Slack, so that was the tipping point for the project.
So if I just want to finish the story because I still didn't apologize. So the apology still comes.
It's a long-winded apology.
It's a long-winded apology. Yes, it's a apology that comes from the heart. So basically, there was me, and I was drowning in work and just the usual daily work project, and also the motivation took a bump. So I contacted people on Slack, but I kind of remembered that Slack didn't join the Slack. Chet didn't join the Slack yet, so he didn't get the message, and I thought, well, maybe he just forgot about the instance, and of course he did not. So then on a Friday, I got the email suddenly from Chet, and sorry Chet that I didn't tell you by email that we got the rejection, but maybe it was good that I didn't tell you because in the end you wrote the article then for us.
And the email I sent was with the article, right?
Yeah,
so I wrote this thing and sent it to you. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So there came Chet, and then it felt like being like a plane on the runway, and you were gaining up speed, so
And now
you
you
were
have
gaining
to do it.
content, and then and then yeah, exactly. And there comes the point of no return, and then I thought, oh shit, now Chet has contributed an article. What am I gonna say if we don't launch this thing? We gotta launch this thing now, so we gotta bring the plane in the air. However, and that's when the motivation really took off, and this really gave me a kick in my yeah. I'm not gonna name it, but
So what
basically,
you're saying is that Chet is unwittingly the whole reason this thing exists.
I would not say he's the only reason, but he's definitely one of the reasons why this thing really took off. Yes. So thank you, Chet. Thank you, Chet, because with your article, I really got like a kick, and like this really took off.
I love the idea that this magazine, with a lot of really good technical content, was pushed, as you say, into the air with an article that doesn't have any. So
hey, I
wonder, like, when you, what's that?
You do have code.
I do. I'm not sure it actually like compiled, like is syntactically correct.
Matter.
Like I didn't even have the time to sanity check like my assumptions about, the for syntax and all that stuff that had annoyed me for so very long, which is at the root of the premise of the article. But yeah, hopefully it's close enough that everybody squints and it makes sense. I do wonder though, when we were not allowed to use the name Kotlin, and there were some other names batted around, like Fun Times, I think was the sort of contender that we were going with, and it turns out somebody had that, some small company named McDonald's. And I wonder, when we couldn't use any of those, whether we could have just called it guilt, because it really was driven by guilt. Like my article was driven by the guilt of me having committed to you, and then me sending you the article was the guilt for you to say, oh crap, now we actually have to do this thing.
So guilt-driven development, it works.
Yes.
Let's also appreciate the fact that the deadline that Chet had actually made him rush the article, and and so deadlines, they actually work.
They do.
This whole thing is there because of deadline, and you're always complaining about deadlines, man. That's unfair. So
and turns out we actually had two very natural deadlines. Like 1st of April is by definition on 1st of April. So if you launch an April stock on April 3rd, it's not going to be an April stock, right? And also with Kotlin Conf, if they went along with would have went along with the plan that we could copy the magazine for the Kotlin Conf, and we would have told them, oh, you need to move the Kotlin Conf by like 3 days because we're not finished yet. That would never have happened, right? So we had some tight deadlines which you could not move. So I guess that also contributed to the magazine being there on time.
So
it's true. I mean, I find that in life in general, it certainly helps in software. It helped with Android, like them getting out, soon enough back in the early days, or just in general, any release is like, if it's driven by hardware, that deadline is hard in a way that like pushing the new web framework is not. Like you can always fix it tomorrow. Whereas if you got hardware, no, that thing has to land. And I'm finding it with my screenwriting stuff too. Like one of the things I'm really getting out of this is, there's a bunch of side stuff. Yeah, learning this and hearing, feedback from professors and all that stuff. But the fact that I have no idea where my story is going, and yet my outline is due next Wednesday, means I will have an outline due coming in next Wednesday. I'm not just going to blow it off. I'm not going to push it off and maybe deliver it the next week and not get around to it. It's like no, it is an assignment and it is due. And that deadline, even if it's artificial, like my grades don't really matter to me right now. It's more about the stuff I'm doing, but I'm taking the deadlines very seriously because it pushes me to do the stuff that I need to do. So even if it's arbitrarily imposed deadlines, they're super important because we're all overburdened with too many things to do. So it takes a thing on your calendar reminding you, and a commitment you made to say, no, shit, I actually need to do this thing.
It's the, how they say, constraints, they foster creativity. How is it?
Absolutely.
Something like that, right? The idea that it's a weekend project, and you need to compromise and you need to ship it, right? So that kind of I really enjoy the kind of as you say, even if it's a self-imposed deadline, because we are not working in a ER, people are not dying if we don't ship it. But I completely agree. I mean, it works for our brain, I guess.
Yep. And in fact, constraints kick in a couple of ways here. Constraints of deadlines are important for doing the thing. I find constraints incredibly important in creative work for giving me an idea. Like it's the catalyst that you can build around. It's the grain of sand in the oyster that forms ideas around it. You give me a blank piece of paper and ask me to write something funny, I'm going to sit there for a very long time and probably eventually create my own constraints. But the fact that Mark had asked for an article, I assumed that you were expecting something funny. I can't remember what you asked me for at the time, but it was an article in a Kotlin magazine, and that immediately started fostering ideas. When I finally got around to it, I'm like, okay, well, what do I think is funny about Kotlin? What has annoyed me about Kotlin? And the for syntax is one of those key things. It was like, I went very quickly from like, I gotta have an article. I have no ideas. Oh, well, there's this thing that it used to annoy me when I did a lot of Kotlin stuff back in the beginning when I was learning it. And I'll just like noodle with this. And then a couple hours later, I had the article. So yeah, constraints are like key to anything, I think, especially in creativity, because you don't have any structure otherwise.
I wondered actually how you came up with the idea. So it turns out that the annoyance of the for loop in Kotlin got the idea for you.
Yeah, I mean that was the premise, and like the background of that, it was probably like I've spent a bunch of time this year in my program thinking about like various aspects of comedy and different forms that it can take, and one of those is satire and parody, and like taking a thing and like recasting it as like, oh, isn't this great? Right? So it's that kind of ironic twist of like, here's an awesome thing about this language. No, actually, it really annoys me that they did that. I find it. I found, especially when I was learning the language, I found it really annoying that I kept having to relearn the damn syntax. So then casting that as like, no, it's an advantage, and why would that be an advantage? And how could we then take it further? Which is another sort of core element I've been playing with, is that element of exaggeration. So yeah, pulling all of those together, especially given the tight deadline, it's like, and I want to be done this morning because I have homework to do.
I think the next step is for number 2, if ever there is a number 2, and we'll get back to that. You should team up with Roman and explain how good bitwise operators are in Kotlin.
Yes.
It's a complaint you've never heard, I'm sure.
Absolutely worth mining there. Yes. Yep.
I actually also approached Roman to contribute an article because I thought something like bitwise, I actually thought more about the technical side of the bitwise operators. I would have loved an article like that, but he didn't turn out contributing.
He had told me, I told him at some point that I was doing this thing, probably when I eventually turned it into you, and he said, oh yeah, I was asked early on and I was busy with something. And then I saw him reach out to you on the Slack, but it was so close to the end that I'm sure he had other stuff going on. I think that was coming up to I/O.
Yeah.
If I'm right.
Yeah.
And
pretty
so that didn't work
time.
out, but I'm sure he would absolutely be in for something in the future, either something technical on the bitwise or something also ridiculous.
It was actually funny that the magazine still happened, because there was so much going on before Kotlin Conf, like basically Google I/O and also the magazine preparation, and of course the team from JetBrains and Google and all the people, they were preparing like a small conference, right? So Kotlin Conf in Copenhagen. So turned out that approaching them for this idea was actually the worst moment, because they were busy organizing this very small conference, right? So I guess it would never have happened.
Yeah, just ask them now for next year is probably the best time. Like 1 week after the conference has happened is the best time to approach any organizer about anything.
No, because you know what they'll say, yeah, that sounds great, and then it won't happen because there is no deadline pushing them.
Oh no,
you
just
still
start.
need that. You need that pressure.
Yeah. But it's just like, Oh, we can get the legal stuff out now, and then I'll start annoying you in 6 months.
But from a legal trademark point of view about the Kotlin name, so is there any way around it? I know, it's just, I mean, we have the name of the magazine. I'm just curious about the whole use or something like that. So the magazine is non-profit, I assume, right? Or you're buying any Lamborghini with it? So okay, so no Lamborghini inside. So
there might be a paper.
I actually have to sell my Lamborghini in order to finance the magazine. So
fair enough.
Totally worth
fair
it.
enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Unreliable.
Thank you for your service, by the way. So from because it seems fair use, right? So the magazine is basically free. Would it be? Am I being too naive?
That's not how lawyers work, even.
Yeah. No. Step one: get rid of the lawyers in any company, and then you can start to have this conversation. So Mark knows the details on this particular thing, but I've seen this thing play out, inside and outside of companies before. And essentially, I'm not a lawyer. My understanding is if they cannot control exactly what happens with that thing, they will not let it happen, which is why only the company is allowed to do this, because at least they can control how the company uses that brand name. Otherwise, they kind of lose control of it. So the worst example of that I know of it was actually quite similar. There's it's not a nonprofit, but it's a fantastic community organization that puts on the DevOps conferences. And back in the day, around 2010 and earlier, it used to be called Java Polis. And it was a community event, and it was very affordable, and everybody loved this thing. It's still a really good conference. But Sun Microsystems at the time, probably prior to 2010 then, made them change the name because they were not allowed to use the name Java. And it was a really good thing for Java. There was no conflict there. They weren't taking it in a weird direction. But the company line, and probably in general, any big company line, would be, we have no control over what you're doing with our brand name. Therefore, you cannot use our brand name.
Okay. There's also another aspect to it, which is, as far as I know, if you have a trademark and you let people use it without your explicit approval, then you lose the brand. So
but I will ask for approval. So my idea will be, today, to put Kotlin on the magazine, this thing should belong to the Kotlin Foundation. So you should be giving them the right of the magazine, basically, right? So I'm just
if they
going,
want to do it. That's the other
that's
question.
the idea. So, if you will make it like legit, they should take ownership of the magazine.
So this gets into people's workloads. So this is close to the crap I had to deal with the book to get legal approval, which is they would rather have just said no and let the book not happen, because by asking them for approval and going through some process to make sure that PR and legal was cool with the stuff I was saying, I was forcing them to do work to actually go in and look at the content and understand that everything was okay, or if it wasn't, suggest changes or whatever. And that was just extra work. They have enough crap to do in their lives. Why would they take the time to do this unless they had to? And I think the magazine falls into that unfortunate space where it's they would have been fine had they, looked through it and taken ownership of it, but they had enough stuff to do of their own. Why are they doing this?
Okay, so
I keep speaking on Mark's behalf. Mark, do you have other insights into this whole mess?
No, it's actually like you said, and also Seb told it quite easily. So it doesn't matter what your intention with this thing is. So the intention might be completely positive, as we did. We are people from the Kotlin community who happen to love the Kotlin language, more or less, maybe.
Except for the fourth statement.
And we just wanted to create a magazine to celebrate Kotlin and celebrate Kotlin in time for Kotlin Conf. But the intention doesn't matter in the legal sense, right? So in legal, it's really like Seb said. So if there's a trademark And I think in the US law, it's basically so if you let some other parties, like some companies or some people, and you just keep, they can just use the name Kotlin for whatever, then at the time some bad actor comes along, you don't have the right anymore to tell them, well, you cannot use the name Kotlin anymore. And then they said, why? You let these people, other people use it. So it's really important to make sure that the name is not used in a bad manner, right? And in order to prevent the bad manner, we also have to prevent the other usages.
Okay. But now
Yeah.
I'm thinking, what if we ask to the Polish ketchup company then?
It's a different domain. So you could technically have a newspaper that is called Kotlin Today that is about news, local news from the Kotlin island. That would be allowed because it's a different domain. But if you're talking about programming and the Kotlin language, then you cannot do that.
I'll write your island article to give it justification there. People will open up this magazine expecting all sorts of things about code, and it's just about tourist information for visitors.
Oh, please, Chet, you should write like the diary of a seagull that lives on the Kotlin island.
Perfect. Good constraint. All right.
Maybe the second number again.
Yeah, let's create another programming language. Like maybe let's call it Hawaii.
As long as you don't call it something that already exists, like Ceylon or Java.
Can I say that this whole thing is gonna be perfect for the next April 1st Fool with the seagull and the ketchup? I mean, that's perfect. I mean, I'm already starting working on the cover page. Midjourney is gonna just come up with something crazy.
It's all human content. Well, I say all. There's one article that is actually not, right? In the first number.
There's one article that is actually not. I didn't get your question.
There is AI, I think it says.
Yeah. And I'm quite happy actually that we managed to write the articles ourselves.
AI, but I'm talking about this.
Yeah. You can actually, you're still sharing your screen, so you can just go to the page with the article. So I saw Mosen actually in the chat. So hi Mosen. So he actually also added one of the contents, and if I remember, this was also one of the first things that got contributed, and I'm quite happy that. So the thing about AI is I don't really like if people use AI and that they just let create an article and the article is basically they just don't review it, right? But here I saw that was actually funny. I actually read it and then we improved some more things. So this is really, really great that we have this in there. And also with AI, we could add some really, really cool images. So if you go back to one page, also Mario was one of the heavy users of AI, and he added this this Android figurine. Turns out it seems to be quite hard to use the AIs to generate some naughty stuff, but they tried anyway.
I am.
Well, I'm glad you cropped it where you did.
Yeah. We don't want to know.
Yeah, the naked truth about Android development.
I'm quite sure that Mario got a lot of pushback from DALL-E saying, naked, no.
Bad Mario.
This I mean, I'm not saying this is not nightmare fuel. It kind of is. Because I swear,
look at how powerful Android is.
But it's like the new Android mascot is so cute. It's like
this is how they're gonna look, Sebastiano. This is how they're gonna look after AI takes control. That's it. Once they rise, this is it.
I'm sure
the original robot was called Bug Droid. I think this one is called Big Droid.
Is it not called Bug Droid anymore? I don't know. Maybe.
Well, it still is internally, but I don't think we really push that name externally. I don't know what we'll call it.
That would explain why when I was asking, I think it was Dali as well, to generate a bug droid, it came up with some entirely random stuff.
Yeah.
But while we're talking about bugs, if you go to page 2, so scroll up to the page after the cover. So also this was one contribution which I'm really happy about. That was already quite early. So we talked about bugs, and there's this online comic with Monkey User, and he has this he or she, I don't know, the author. I think it's a he, and they have this really cool, nice figurine for bugs, and they actually also sell plush. And Mosen actually contacted the author and asked if we can use some of the comics in our cartoon, and the author said yes, just include a link to my store and the Patreon, and then you can add this. And I'm really happy that we have the small Monkey User page on page 2.
That was a really nice surprise when I opened the magazine the first time and went on page 2. I was like, that's cool. Were they?
Yeah, turns out it's quite important to keep people interested. And if you just have text, then it's going to be pretty boring. And if you have some colors here and there and some images, it's going to make it much more interesting.
Mm-hmm. Were these drawn specially for the magazine, or did you select them from the back catalog?
Mosen suggested this, so I told Mosen, hey, just select some that you like, and then he created this page. So it was all him. That was really very nice.
Sorry, Chet, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, I was going to ask Mark existential question. Why a magazine? Okay, so in this day and age, like there's the concept of, oh, it'd be great if we got some articles, technical and not, and put together a site that people can click on and read the stuff that we put together. And that's like this much effort, whatever form it takes, like electronic everything. And that's this much effort beyond what the content authors are actually doing. And then your idea of like, also if we use 1950s technology to create like page spreads and full color, and we're going to print this thing, and all of a sudden you're using layout software, and you're thinking about the visual aspects of it. Like, how did you get from like I want to collect articles? I guess it started from the cover, and you just carried it through to completion.
Yeah, and so basically the idea came from the cover, and then having a real magazine came from that. So it was basically this one idea from the cover sparking the magazine idea. That one sparked the idea to actually print it in time for Kotlin Conf. But there's one of the thoughts I had behind this was that nowadays we just open a tab and we just close it immediately, so we don't have this relation with some content anymore. And also there's something powerful, I think, when a team comes together and just comes together with one mission, and then they contribute content for that mission. And I think the magazine has some parts which you just couldn't pull off like online, let alone this 3D Kotlin logo that you can just print, and then you can cut it out, you can glue it. Some people actually, so I actually heard a coworker today, and he said that he's gonna do it with his children next week or in the next 2 weeks. And I've already heard some people actually doing this with their children, because it's tangible. It's something that you can hold in your hands. It's something completely different than online, close tab, and your complete emotion with that thing is gone.
I think it's great. Like, to be clear, I'm not saying you should have done the online thing. I'm really happy that you did the magazine, because there is something really nice about tangible things. And as you say, like, I think we discount information that we get online because it always feels like, oh, that looks really interesting. And so you open the tab and you never get to that tab. Instead, eventually you have too many tabs and you close them all and it's gone, right? Or, you look at something really fast and cursorily, and then you get back to your real job. But having the hard copy and having that physical thing you can hold, I think encourages you to actually open it up and see what's there, which is great. Or, play with it, as you said, like the model that you built.
Yeah, and there are some other things also in the magazine. Like on one page, there's a small labyrinth that you can play. So some children also like to play with that. Then on so yeah, you're scrolling. So here it is. So we actually made a small story about this, about Cody, the Kotlin mascot, coming to KotlinConf, but he's lost in the streets of Copenhagen. So now you have to help him or it, to go through to KotlinConf.
Nice. This is how we brainwash the children to become developers. Well done.
Exactly. That was my point. Exactly. Yes. And also on the last page, so second last page, there's so on this one here, there's a Kotlin crossword puzzle that you can do. It was actually created last minute, so this was nice that we actually had some more pages to fill, and the crossword puzzle is a nice big thing to fill one more page. So that was, yeah. It's sometimes funny how these things came to be, and we also played around with some other ideas. So I'm really happy.
A quiz that I really enjoyed seeing.
Yes. We have a quiz that Martin created, actually. So I'm really happy about that. So you can find out which Kotlin developer you are. And so also something that really works great in the magazine, but doesn't work as great digitally. Yeah. So you have this quiz, and then you have to turn it around to actually read the solution, like what type of Kotlin developer you are. And so the question I'm really happy that we had some.
Yes. What type are you? I haven't done it yet, but
Int.
I'm float. I'm sure. There's always a rounding error.
I have to be honest. I only tried it one more time, but I completely forgot which one I picked. So I have to try it again. I'm getting back to you then.
I'm pretty sure I would fail the interview. If you do the magazine thing again, I can't imagine why you want to take on this level of effort again. But if you did it again, and then you run out of content and you have it left, one of my things that I like to do is you just put text in the middle of it that says this page intentionally left blank. It works for government documents. I think it would work for a magazine very well.
Yeah, I remember one of the Google I/O talks was actually about using Wi-Fi for indoor navigation, and the slide said what makes Wi-Fi good for use in indoor navigation, and then there was only one small text like it's available everywhere, and then there was this really blank page because nothing else is about great about using Wi-Fi in indoor locations. But yeah, it works great. Yes.
Yeah. I have a couple of questions, if you don't mind. The first one is, well, this page specifically, I also asked you in person, but I think it's interesting that you had Martin and Louis doing the cycling trip. So obviously they got to Copenhagen the day before the conference, 2 days before the conference, right? So this must have been stressful, let's say, to get all the pictures in and close the page so you could go to a printer. How did you organize this?
Actually, it was not that stressful because and so again, some things that initially we thought that they're gonna restrict us and that will decrease our motivation actually turned out to our advantage. Like for example, also I think Amanda Hinchman and Louis Cat wanted to create an article, but then they ended up not doing it. But they wanted to create an article about Louis. But then I knew that Louis and Martin are going to go to KotlinConf with bike, and we still had more content that we needed. So we asked them can we use your pictures and put them into the magazine? And then it turns out that Louis, he just added these pictures on the night before I actually flew to Copenhagen. So then the pictures were there, some final editing while I was in the copy shop, and then it was done. And then we gave it to print.
Wow.
Nice.
And yeah, so sorry, one thing that I thought would turn out to our disadvantage was that we couldn't print it for Kotlin Conf, but turns out it's actually so much easier to just print a few copies. So we ended up printing just 100 for some people. So for our team members, we wanted to have copies, and for them to give away to some people, they would like to have one. That's basically how we then decided to create some copies anyway, because we wanted to give it to some people that we wanted to, have the magazine and hold them in the hands. And obviously, we would have loved to give it to many more people, but we ended up just printing 100 of these.
Next time.
Yeah, maybe.
Tora only had so much space to mule just very few copies home. So
you just need more Tors. That's all you need. Go, Ivan.
Something that I want to ask about, the going from in a world of electronic content and I want to say cheap content. So you open some blog post somewhere and you get flooded with ads that they pay for everything because that's how internet works. So who paid for this? How can we contribute to the second number, for instance? No, because that's the main question, right? Okay,
yeah.
people loved it. Maybe because you have GitHub. I guess you have download stats on GitHub, so you can check if actually people are interested. No, because why would they?
I mean,
tell you?
Satya knows.
Yeah, sure. Well, fair enough. Maybe you can ask Copilot.
Maybe you can, just send Satya an email. It's like, by any chance.
I mean, it's interesting. I wrote to some people who I never thought I'm going to get a response because I didn't think that Chet would actually reply, or that Jesse would reply, or that Andre Breslov would reply, and they actually replied. So I'm really amazed, and this is making me proud
Satya's
to be a member of the Kotlin. Yeah, Satya's is next. I'm gonna ping him right after this call, asking for the download numbers. No, but I'm really surprised. Like, this is amazing to me that in the Kotlin community. And people are more approachable than you think. Like there's Chet, and you can just talk to him, and there's Tor, and you can just talk to him, and there's many other people, and you can just talk to them, and you're gonna have a great conversation. You can just write them on email, and maybe they will reply. You can write them on Slack, and nobody is gonna reply. Actually, that's not true. Andre Breslov replied via Slack. So yeah, I'm really amazed that.
I'll tell you a secret, Mark.
A member.
The whole series of streams is based on the fact that people actually answer when you write them.
Yes.
If we were in a different community where people are more, uptight, this whole thing wouldn't exist.
Yeah,
we're very lucky to be in a position of having interesting people that are also available to talk to and to share their knowledge and experience.
Can you imagine? It was just me, you, and crickets. Like the whole we asked the Scala community manager. Oh yeah, and they crickets.
We asked the iOS community manager.
Yeah, sure.
Oh yeah, iOS wouldn't respond because they didn't want to get in legal trouble. I think the Scala folks might respond by arguing.
Yeah.
Like it is one of my favorite parts of doing all the outreach stuff that I did. Was it's such a great community of people that were just trying to collaborate on stuff, whether it's the talks at the conferences or just hanging out and exchanging ideas. But everybody seemed pretty open in my experience. I'm sure this is not unique to Android, but it is one of the things that I think made that community very nice, at least in that domain. Yeah, Microsoft. I don't know. If there's more of a corporate push in some communities, I'm sure it changes the dynamic. And certainly iOS is a little bit different because the company itself has a policy of nobody speaks for the company except the person at the top, essentially. And so people can't really talk about internal stuff or technical details. And then I think that becomes a tone for the community as well. Maybe not. Maybe there's community groups that are more open than the corporate culture. I don't know.
I have a couple of people from the US, the iOS world on Twitter, and they are kind of not. I mean, you don't see the overwhelming, DevRel or things like that. For instance, I also follow the Rails community, right? So the Rails community is super. A lot of people excited, and then there is DHH that is like, he's his own character. So from iOS, it's kind of. And I have been doing this for like a lot, too much time. So it's not just I mean, if it was there, probably we will have seen it. From experiencing Android, the dichotomy. At some point you have to overlap a bit for the two communities, and it never happened. So I agree. You could probably bait other community, like the Scala people. You just say, "Yeah, Monad sucked." And you will probably bait people from the Haskell community to join but it will be an argument, as you said. It will not be like a friendly conversation. But I mean, so we can stick to Android people and writers. I think we have plenty of guests available. What do you say, Sebastian?
Yeah, we have. I think we have enough interesting people to get around with for now.
And I think just to throw it there, I don't know how it works, but chat, will you be available? Do you reply on WhatsApp? Are you that kind of boomer?
I am on WhatsApp because every new community you join has its own way of contacting people. So like when I moved to Chicago, I started using GroupMe because that's what some of my classmates were using. I started using WhatsApp more because other classmates were doing this other thing. And I joined Instagram because that's what my running groups were on. And it's like, and now I have, I used to like have 3 tabs pinned because that was my way of like contacting people. And now I have like 8 or 10 because it's like all these different parallel channels of community communication.
Yeah, it's the same for us. Like, boomers on WhatsApp, nerds on Telegram, and that kind of stuff. And then this is the Android people on Slack. And I'm waiting for the European community to just start spying on all of us. So now I will need to install something else because some paranoid friend will say, I won't talk to you on Telegram anymore. So now we are using this hyper secure. I mean, yes. Sorry.
Yeah,
it's a hard time. I rant a lot lately. Sorry.
I wonder what's.
So here's the 20 messaging apps that Google created, and 20 more by other companies. Figure it out.
Yeah, and to some extent that I think that's related to the community aspect, which is Android started out, and again, I'm not saying this is unique to Android, but I think there's an element that probably works for other communities as well, which is it started out with a very open approach, open source, but also like open, hey, here's how we do stuff, and the developers were approachable when they weren't just writing code, and that I think encourages people to get into that community and participate, and I think a lot of like if big companies if it's a one-way push, then it doesn't really encourage communities to build up around it. They just, receive this information. It's more, they get the input from the corporation they perceive, which is, I assume what it's like on the iOS side. I don't know. And Microsoft probably a bit more as well. Scala, other open source things are probably, similarly like open, because then it's more like the community kind of comes together to try to figure out this complicated thing that they feel like they're doing together, as opposed to bits that a corporation is pushing at them.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether this is like a forever thing, because as companies become bigger, even if it's an open source thing, like, we certainly see, Google and Android becoming more polished and a bit more, it's just a big company, right? At one point, does it feel like there's a disconnect between the company and the community? I don't think it's there now, but I think that is a danger as any organization grows.
Yeah, and things have definitely changed over time, especially,
I
mean, COVID definitely made things change out of necessity. But I feel like it's still a different environment and a different vibe than it was before COVID. I might be just older than I was. That's absolutely a possibility. You know, we get other things in life other than coding, but I still, you know, it feels different, and I'm wondering where it will head in the next, you know, 5 years or so.
I agree. I mean, this is part of me eventually deciding to go do something else, was that I feel like a lot of the humanity kind of went away because we all went home for a couple of years and didn't completely come back. And then it sort of makes you reassess other things you want to do. This is too much information, but
no, tell me about it.
But I don't know to what extent. So I agree. Like I don't believe that there is the same amount of effort poured into outreach that there used to be. I believe that there needs to be, in that like things did get more polished and more documented, and you know maybe the community has an easier time figuring this stuff out, and we're given a lot of information to sort of get them going. But I don't think that's resulted in like fracturing the community or distancing the company. I think it's more, you know, maybe there's enough momentum there that the community aspect of Android can sort of keep going because there's a really good reason for it to exist, and maybe they don't need all the hand holding from the company, or maybe in the long run that ends up, you know, taking some of the joy and the energy out of the community. Well, I guess we'll see.
Yeah, nobody really knows, I guess, right now.
Yeah, to me, it's actually really interesting. So we talked a bit about companies influencing those communities, and companies have a pretty big influence, especially on communities that they helped in creating, like the Kotlin community and everything. But I really want to remind people that we are the Kotlin community, and we can actually help the Kotlin community to stay as awesome as it is right now. And it's sometimes astounding how the world is based on some people who are really doing some proactive stuff to just keep things fun, keep things interesting, keep the haters out. So it's basically up to every one of us to keep it awesome. Because it's a flaky thing. It's a flaky thing. Like the Kotlin community being awesome is something that can go away, and we cannot let that happen, right? Or at least if we enjoy being part of the Kotlin community.
Yeah, it is a fragile thing. Like if some different corporate influence came in and they're like, no, we need to be, you know, more polished in corporate, like you're gonna kill the joy. And some of those people who are doing this out of a passion project are gonna start looking elsewhere. You reminded me that like I didn't want to make it so specifically about Android. I think Kotlin and JetBrains is another really good example of building community, and partly from a similar standpoint. Like obviously it's a company and they want to make money and they sell these tools to do this, but they also have a lot of very open aspects about the technology that they offer and a lot of free entry points, and it's new and exciting. And so there's a similar aspect in the Kotlin community, at least, you know, from the Android side, which is the only side I know for Kotlin, where you also get a lot of participation and joy and passion in the community, even though, yeah, it's driven by a company that is making money, and yet not in a way that dissuades them from getting involved from a personal standpoint.
Yeah, it's I don't know how to express this, but it feels like JetBrains is a company that is making money in a good way. I don't know how to say it. It's like they're not leeching out of the community, is what I mean.
But they're solving a problem. So when you think about they are solving a problem, I mean, take my money, because I don't want the problem and I can afford the solution. So the whole thing balances and it works. On the other hand, sometimes I get very, very tired of the libraries fights and, you know, the religion discussions that we have in the Android community.
Wait, are you talking about dependency injection or?
It's not just that, but you know, it's the navigation library every now and then somebody, and then you look, for instance, at the iOS community, they really don't have that. right? So they don't care. I mean, you take any iOS developer and ask about the dependency injection, they're gonna be like, yeah, sure, whatever.
The what?
Right? Yeah, that's it. Right. So there are interesting things in the Android or Kotlin community, but also you look at other places that are maybe a bit more uptight, as you said, and life feels a bit easier. Why there is not that much drama, right? So the overlords told us how to build things, use storyboard or whatever, and we just build them, according to the conventions. In the Android world, this never happened because there was very little opinionated stuff from Google, so we went wild on everything. Before Android X came out, and you say, okay, people, you should be doing navigation like this, and that it didn't work out either because we have like a lot of other libraries to do navigation and things like that. So they also tried. Right now with Compose for multi-platform, people are doing even more because oh yeah, Google solution only works on Android. We're doing our own thing.
Not anymore, but
yeah, because now they are trying to catch up because that because I see the struggle there. And again, it's you have to like it. It's a fine line between I can't handle this much drama, and
I don't need the extra drama. That's the point.
I
Right?
don't need the extra drama, or oh yeah, this is so cool because improvement, progress, or people creativity. And again, I just saw another library for image loading today, and I was like, do we really need this? How many libraries do we need for image loading? And again,
image loading. Image loading now with AI.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
no.
now every day. But then you look at the Flutter, you look at the Flutter community, and that they have just one solution, right? The Flutter has a built-in image loading thingy, and that's it. Right? Nobody's out there building another library to load images. So
It might also be in that case a matter of volume, in the sense of how many people there are and how many people. I think it's like big numbers is
I have been
inevitable. At some
finding
point, someone wakes up and they're like, "Oh, I think I can do image loading today. Why not?"
I have been doing this for a few months, and there is a Flutter plugin for everything. So you have the need. When there is a need, they are gonna fix it, right? So, but then you don't have so much duplication when there is no need for duplication. I don't know if people are, different. Maybe they don't want to prove something. I don't know, but I think about this stuff a lot.
Maybe they don't want to implement something that already exists and works because they don't like to implement it that much.
Yeah, it was like,
It's
okay,
oh, I have to do the art. It's fine. Someone else has done
the
it.
thing is there. But that's what I mean, right? So you look at the problem. You have a problem. You look for a solution. Oh, there is a library. The library is already doing it. Now I can move back to solving the problem that I have, right? You go from, I don't know. They feel more business oriented than tech oriented. So they don't want to build one. But then you have Romangui complaining about bits, and I don't. I think the
it's a different thing, man. It's a different thing.
Yeah, I don't know. Just me.
I think it's like the difference between, on one side it's a job, and on the other side it's a party. The advantage to the job is, they give you the tools, you implement the thing like this, but there's not a lot of excitement. The party is super exciting, and then you wake up in the morning with a hangover.
Yeah, so and 5 image loading libraries.
Exactly. Where did these come from? I don't know, man. I was so wasted last night.
I wish people just brought their trash away with them.
No. They just let it ossify as a GitHub project. It just over time it just decomposes naturally in the bits.
You just don't reply to issues and things like that.
You can also look at it as you said, it's an indication of people putting passion and into what they do, as opposed to just a 9 to 5. And I don't think it's wrong that people want to take their own stab at problems. Obviously, with the realistic expectations that we have a working solution, 2 working solutions for image loading. Your third one is now going to take over, but you're more than welcome to do it and try your hand as an exercise. I think that's fine.
And I think it comes with a job, like being a developer, being a problem solver. We jump to the solution really quickly, and then we forgot completely what the problem actually was, and then we get, and then we basically love our solution already when we just didn't understand the problem yet.
It's the IKEA effect, right?
And it is far more interesting to a certain class of developers to come up with the solution than to simply use one.
Yeah,
like that's not interesting. Like we got into this, if you love what you do, like we all do, then you want to solve the big problems. Like you want to solve puzzles. You don't want to just plug in pieces somewhere and move on to another one. So that's,
or maybe you
that's
do, and
how we end up with messy libraries.
Maybe you do, and you work somewhere else. You do a different job. No.
That's
also fine.
There was something that we were discussing in the past. At some point, like people wondering from a software developer point of view, most of my work is just plug libraries together and make them work together. I don't feel the fact that I'm building anything like. It can happen, and probably I can understand the fact that at some point you use Snap and you want to reinvent image loading because reasons, or you want to, some way to be creative in a way.
Yeah.
Or you run into a bug and you're like, oh, they're never gonna fix it. I'm gonna rewrite everything.
Yeah, from scratch.
Yes.
Yeah.
I went to a talk at a conference once, Android conference. This is like pre-pandemic. And I had exactly that feeling you were saying, Ivan, of like, wait, this is how people write applications these days? Because like everything in the talk, I didn't understand really anything they were talking about, because it was all about like, oh, well, you get this library, and then this dependency is created over here, and then you need to do this, and then there's a dependency injection over here, and like there was no code. There was no code in the entire application that I could see. It was all about connecting the pieces of existing technologies. Which I'm not saying that's the wrong approach. I think this is probably how people do it. But I was like, yeah, but where's the joy? Where's the fun? And maybe that's it. It's like, well, if you got into this to actually like write algorithms and solve these puzzles, then maybe at the end of your day, you're like, okay, that was my job, and now time for the adventure. And you write your ossifying GitHub project library.
So since we have like 7 minutes left, I have a couple of questions that I wanted to ask about the magazine, because we've kind of strayed a bit far away from the original
Just
topic,
tiny bit,
as we tend to do. One is, are you planning a number 2? Is that because it says on the front that it's a limited one-time edition, but I don't trust you. Is that really?
So I
Wait,
definitely.
Way to treat a guest.
Yeah, so it's definitely no yes, and it's definitely not a no. So I only intended for this thing to be there one time, because as it turns out, doing a magazine is taking a lot of time. So we had multiple people contributing, and even though we told them, hey, this is going to be a fun project, at one point it feels like work. And I actually want to thank my company, Snap Mobile, because they just let me use a couple of days to just focus completely on this magazine, which otherwise I could have not layouted all the articles in that way.
Thanks, Johanni.
Yeah, thanks, Johanni. That is amazing. Johanni and Jasper. So I don't know. So I'm definitely not going to say yes, because also there's this tension for people talking about, oh, I'm gonna do this great thing, and then when they talk about it, then they are less likely to do it. So I'm not going to say anything for the future if there's going to be another magazine.
Chet, your suggestion is Interesting.
Yeah, I guess
You
we'll
kept
see.
saying number two and number two and number two, and I was like, does he know what that means?
I know.
Does that mean? Does that not mean the
My
same
brain
thing
is
in
just
Italy?
very well compartmentalized. So that
Mine
stuff.
is not.
Yeah,
I've always told people I have like a background thread in running constantly, basically parsing every word that I hear and seeing how I can misconstrue it. So there
nice.
you go.
So
Good to know.
So what I can tell, we have no future plans definitely for another magazine, but you might see some copies here and there at some conferences in the future. I'm not gonna mention anything, but yeah, so it might be that you see us a few more times.
The one you mentioned earlier, so I can say is Berlin, I guess.
No, I did not mention anything. Nope.
I heard Berlin earlier. I don't know.
I said I was going to be there.
Oh, it was you, Chet. Sorry, I got confused.
Yeah, I was actually meeting Greg, who's the organizer behind DroidCon. I met him at Kotlin Conf, and then he basically said, "Oh, did you know that Chet is going to come to DroidCon Berlin?" And I said, "No." And then just a couple of minutes later, it was on Twitter, "Hey, Chet, I'm coming to DroidCon Berlin."
Yeah, that worked out. Somebody else reached out today and said that they're going to be there. I had no idea. Like, I don't know what the community is there. This sort of came up for me. It was a timing thing. Greg and I were trying to figure out, was there a DroidCon I could get to? Like I'd gone to DroidCon London annually, which worked out great. I have friends there in the community, but timing wise, this is the only one that I could go to. So I'm glad it worked out at all.
Nice. We will miss you in London this year.
Yeah, if only you didn't schedule it during my class term.
I didn't schedule anything.
Just move it. Just move it a couple of weeks.
Talk to Greg. Talk to Greg.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm gonna be at DroidCon Berlin too, and this brings me to something that I actually wanted to tell people. So first of all, we didn't actually say this, but you can download the PDF today and just print it for your own or just read it. So if you go to kotlintoday.com or to our GitHub repo, which is like github.com/Kotlin-magazine, then you can download it today. And we would love to hear your feedback because we don't have any analytics enabled on the webpage. We don't have download counters. So please, 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 if you like the content, then just tell us what you liked. If you played with your children, or if you printed the 3D logo and built it yourself, then show us pictures. We would love to hear from you. I hope I speak for our full team of authors. So this is feeling like if you do an open source project and you don't know which people are actually using it, and then you create a bug and suddenly 100 people say like, "Oh, I'm actually using this library and this bug is now preventing me from using it." So with the magazine, if you enjoy it or if you don't enjoy it and you have some feedback or if you have some ideas for the future, please tell us. That's a good question, and by chance, it's actually showing here on the screen. So we have a Twitter account, Mastodon account. We are now called Fun Code Mag for the Fun Code Magazine, and you can follow us there. And we're gonna post some more things there, and yeah, you can also get to know the team behind the Kotlin magazine, but behind the Fun Code magazine. Sorry, trademark in vain.
So cease and desist, instantly cease and desist.
Yeah, that was
from Adi.
I'm putting the links in the chat.
Oh,
thank you.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Just added the.
Okay, I'll do the other ones. It's fine.
And I also want to give one more shout out. Sorry, this is really important. So the magazine would not have looked as great as it does now without our designer. So our sister company, actually, We Are Systematic. So we have Miki Stefanowski, and he basically created the full design of the first cover for the 1st of April and also for the final magazine. And he really made the magazine shine, because without him, the magazine would have turned out a whole lot more boring. So it turns out having a designer for a product or for a magazine is really, really valuable.
One last question, somewhat related to this. How many sheeps are hidden in there? Because I found a few, but I don't know if I found all of them.
Yeah, so Nicole said so these sheep are actually by Nicole Turk, who does these amazing talks about composable sheep with Compose animations. And I had this idea that she could actually put some sheep in the magazine, and I think it's 10, and even I didn't find all of them. And I printed this damn thing. So some are really, really well hidden.
We need to find like a walkthrough like for video games that tells you, you know, if you go to that place and talk to that guy, that NPC there will have a side quest for you.
Yeah, and talking about side quests, good luck finding all the other Easter eggs that we hid in the magazine.
I really appreciate the page numbers as well.
Oh, you found them. Okay. That was one of them.
I mean,
yes.
the page numbers are all different. Every one of them is in a different format. So
Yeah, it turns out that in programming languages you have like million ways of doing things. That includes page numbers.
Dates.
So I was curious, thinking about the magazine printing, do you remember the timeline between my article landing, I should check my email and see when I sent it to you, and you actually handing hard copies to people? Because it's an unbelievably small window of you going, oh, geez, team, we actually need to do this. And then you started getting the content in, and then you needed to pull it in, and you made a GitHub project, and you formatted, and then you printed like there, you know, after the pictures had landed on some of the content. Like, would you have like 4 weeks from 0 to 100?
I think it was less. I think it was maybe 2 to 3 weeks. So
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
So again, the plane like on the just before the point of no return, before we crashed, and then just taking off like literally.
Wow.
The day before Kotlin Conf, I went to the coffee shop. I was actually landing in Copenhagen, and then I was at the airport opening my laptop, quickly finishing some more layouting on the magazine, and then I actually went to the coffee shop, and I sent them a PDF before, and then he actually just gave me. He just printed me. The owner of the coffee shop just printed me one of these things, and I hold it in my hands. I felt so proud holding this thing in the hands. This was just amazing.
Well,
Yeah,
congrats.
and then we printed it, and then it was
Congrats
finished.
to everyone.
It was finished. Sorry, it was finished in the evening. So I basically went to the coffee shop at 8 p.m. and then I picked up the 100 copies.
I was
Very
saying congrats to everyone involved in the project. It's incredibly cool. And again, being able to hold a physical thing that has no ads inside is it's very rewarding, and it was very nice sitting down and, you know, leafing through it and then reading stuff and then turning it upside down to read the quiz answers. So yeah, it's a very fun project, and I'm very happy that you folks came here to discuss the history and the, you know, the behind the scenes of the project. So thank you very much for coming, and please relay our congrats to the rest of the team. Even Chet, if he shows up in Slack, I don't know.
He is now in the Slack channel, although he already said that he's gonna be gone at one day and he will never return.
The question is that day in the past?
Just being honest.
No,
I'm still there, but it's gone pretty quiet recently, so probably not there for long.
Also, a big thank you from me to the whole team. This was amazing, and without our amazing team, this would never have been possible. So everyone contributed. So thank you. And if you read the magazine, then thank you for reading. I hope you enjoy it.
Ping them on socials. Let them know. File bugs. I don't know. It's a GitHub repo. Just file bugs.
I'll repeat that. Like, I think it is worth knowing that when people create content, it is really nice to know that people actually received it and appreciated it. And I'm sure they do, but I'm sure they think, you know, well, why would they bother saying anything about it? But I think Mark specifically, in addition to, you know, content authors, I think Mark specifically put in a lot of personal effort on this personal project. So it's kind of nice to actually say, hey, this was fun. So, thanks, Mark, and thanks for having us. And I'm sorry I keep joining your show. I think this is probably the Jumping the Shark episode. This is entirely too much Chet on the Italian show. So maybe I'll take a break like I do from Slack.
See you in 2 weeks. I don't know.
Yeah, or maybe you're just going to return, and this time you're going to speak Italian.
Bum, bum, bum. Sure.
If I knew the word for maybe, I would use it now. And I don't. So.
It's just maybe.
with a little bit of this.
Yeah, you need to the
Okay.
maybe.
All right.
Yeah.
Half of the way there.
All right.
This was great. Thanks for having us, and yeah, fun with the magazine.
Everyone,
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, and see you next week. Bye.